So when I'm about to make a cake, I like to measure everything out ahead of time. Make sure my flour is sifted. I also have my baking powder and salt mixed in with the flour. I also prepare the wet ingredients by measuring out 12 ounces of cream of coconut. And I add my vanilla to the cream of coconut so I don't forget it. Now I'm ready to get mixing. The first thing that I do is separate the eggs so that I can beat the egg whites into stiff peaks. It's 6 eggs that I use in this cake. I do use the entire egg. I just like to separate and use the egg whites and add it to the batter last to try to make an extra fluffy cake. A stiff peak means we're done. Now the egg whites are done, all my prep is done, I can start on the batter. It's just the same as any other cake. Mix the butter and the sugar until it's creamy. This is 1.5 cups of softened butter and about 2 cups of sugar. Take a few seconds and scrape down the sides if you need to. We add the egg yolks one at a time, mixing until just incorporated. Last egg yolk going in. Okay, now it's time for the flour and the cream of coconut rotation. And we start with flour and we end with flour, mixing the cream of coconut in between. We're adding the cream of coconut and the flour in until it's just incorporated into the batter. We don't want to overmix. And here's the last little bit of flour going in. The batter is thick, but it's okay because we still have the egg whites to add. Okay, all the flour and cream of coconut is incorporated with the sugar and the butter and the eggs. We can now fold in the egg whites to make or try to make a nice fluffy cake. This is just something I prefer to do by hand. I don't like the fold feature on the mixer at all, so I just like to fold the egg whites into the batter until I don't see any egg whites anymore. It takes about a minute by hand and a little bit of elbow grease, but it's worth it for a fluffy cake. The batter is looking good and ready to go into the cake pans. I have 2 9-inch round cake pans that I'm spraying with non-stick spray, the kind that's specifically for baking. That works better for me than just using the parchment paper or the wax paper and butter and flour. It's just more convenient for me this way. And I'm just trying to evenly put the cake batter in both pans. It'll probably fit better in 3 8-inch round cake pans, but I just have the 2 9-inch for now. This is after about 35 minutes in a 350-degree oven. I let them sit in their cake pans on the cooling rack for about 15-20 minutes until I can handle it, and then I'll transfer straight to the cooling rack. They'll just hang out here until they're completely cooled. Now these cakes are a little thick for me, so I'm going to slice them in half once they've cooled off. Okay, I have this little cake saw here I got from Wilton. I'll link it in the description. And I'm just basically sawing the cake right in half. I'm going to try not to make a mess and transfer it right to my serving dish and just put the icing on it right here on the serving dish. Now I have the platter lined with parchment, so when I put the icing on and make a mess, I can just pull the parchment off and the serving dish should look just fine. This is a classic 7-minute frosting that I'm using. I use Land O'Lakes recipe. My grandma has a recipe, but I like the Land O'Lakes better, so I'll link that one in the description. I'll also link the video to me preparing the frosting so you can see that too. I do want enough frosting in between the layers, but I don't want it too packed with frosting. I never know how much frosting to put in between the layers of the cake. We'll just see how it turns out when I cut it. I always like to make a double batch of frosting. I don't want to run out while I'm in the middle of icing the cake. Okay, now that I have all the icing smeared between the layers, I'm going to start with the top and then kind of smear it all over the side of the cake. I'm not a cake decorator. I'm just baking a cake here. Trying not to make a mess. Trying to be a little cute. And after I've made my way around the whole cake, I can start to add my coconut flakes. Here are my little coconut snowflakes. I achieved this consistency by taking fresh coconut and just plopping them in the food processor until they look like little snowflakes. I don't add any sweetener to them. The frosting is sweet enough, and I just sprinkle my little coconut snowflakes all over the cake, all over the top, all over the sides, all over. This part can get a little messy, but I don't care. I want my coconut snowflakes all over. Now that my cake is coated, I can just slide the parchment from under it and it can look neat and presentable. And here we are, coconut cake. Doesn't look too bad. Let's cut it open and I'm gonna take a bite. Okay, when I cut it open, I feel like I definitely could have put a little more frosting in between the layers. Could have used the whole double batch, but I will next time. It's okay. And it's good. It's not bad for a coconut cake. It's actually pretty tasty. Okay, here it is, my coconut cake. I'll put a blog up with the recipe. Thank you for watching.